Hi, I'm Carol Wilson, Editor-at-Large for Light Reading, and I'm here with Malcolm Orr, the Senior Platform Architect at Colt. Thanks for being here.
Okay, no problem.
So, later on today at our event on OSS in the era of NFV and SCN, you're going to be talking about some of what Colt's doing. We've already heard this morning, though, about some of the issues where OSS development is lagging, particularly in the virtualization space. What's your concern about that?
Well, I think I was involved in OSS a while ago. I've stepped out, I spent a lot of time in cloud, I come back, and I think one of the points that's been raised a lot here is the architecture hasn't changed. You know, it's still the same kind of layered architecture, but in the interim time, networks have become more complicated. Mm-hmm. We're adding virtualization, we're adding compute and storage into it all, and we need to take a very different approach to how we build architectures and look at what's been happening in the cloud space, what's been happening in the application space as well.
Okay, so we're hearing a lot of talk about the notion of moving to more of a microservice approach, where you distribute more of the intelligence and not try to keep it centralized. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
I think so. If we look at, OSS has always been considered individual functional blocks. Mm-hmm. We should really be considering it a whole application to deliver service to our customers. So whether or not we turn our OSS applications into a set of microservices, or whether or not we just use some of the approaches of microservices in terms of service discovery, dynamic discovery, the ability to isolate particular blocks and to build and change those blocks as we need to, but maintain a consistent interface. I think that's the key to it. So I'm not so sure microservices is a way to build new OSS applications, but if we look at the architecture itself, taking some of those principles of microservices, I think is certainly a way forward for us to build OSSs that scale and cope with dynamic services.
Okay. What's the risk to Colt and other service providers if, in fact, this lagging in the OSS side slows down your ability to virtualize services?
I think there's a lot of competition out there. If you look at the way enterprises are consuming IT, the biggest bugbear they have is networks, right? They can't consume networks in the same way they can consume compute and storage from people like Amazon or from their own private clouds. So at some point, people like Amazon, who can develop features much faster than normal telcos, are going to reach out and say, right, we're going to solve this problem. You know, people like Google and Facebook are always trying to do that. So we're not only going to be challenged by new telcos with newer ways of doing business, but I think the people that we wouldn't expect, the public cloud providers, the application hosters, they're going to come forward and say, you haven't solved this problem. You're not making dynamic networks more dynamic, more consumable. We're going to solve it for you. And at that case, we're going to be out the game.
Okay. And are you hoping the vendors are going to step up more quickly to address this issue?
Absolutely. And I think it's not only on the vendors, it's on us as a community of telcos to try and adopt this. And I also think there's a lot of adoption of open source and in getting ourselves involved in a lot of the open source communities to help drive some of this effort, because I think in the longer term, you know, the vendors don't have an answer. They're trying to sell a product for us. Right. We need to solve problems. And I think the open source community is much better at solving problems without necessarily getting involved in the commercial aspects and what do we want to sell and the products we want to sell it. So I think, you know, we need to move to more of that open source model and think about solving problems rather than to build products to solve those things.
Okay, great. Thanks for being here with me,
no
Malcolm.
problem. Okay.